Hello, this is Father, and I wanted to do a video of where are we. But first, let's go through how did we get here. So we did this big run up, okay? Uh, all fine and dandy. Just shows the power that AMC has, right? This is done by an institution taking control somewhere around here. After they seen that the sorts didn't get out, they took control somewhere around here. And where are we? I will have to kind of explain where we came from, right? So when the institution took over, all the areas where there wasn't much trading, right? They iterated here, right? They brought it up. They didn't have to do this part here because back here in the past, it's been a while. It had been done. So this is where we're at. Okay, we're down here. When other people are using fractals and things like that, I think they're getting confused about, see, this is a giant accumulation pattern here, right? This is your buying climax, this is your selling, and then this was this technically was a better version of a better version of a creek cross, right? This is like how it iterates down and then it springs up. It came back down for to catch some stuff that hadn't been done before, right? So some areas in here that did not have were not explored, right? That's what these things were, to get more ammo, if you want to call it that. And because in the past, well, this is still a gap. Technically, there's stuff in the past that's been done, but they were able to jump it up, and this is at the top of the it's at the top of the range, right? And then it ran like normal. This is how you get a top of a range, and then it runs, right? You get a top, accumulate, runs up to the top of the range, and then runs, right? Okay. So why the bowl shape? Okay, this is where I'm gonna explain it. And too bad I lost my videos before, because in those I predicted we were going to come down this far. I think I said 14. And so I think I said in the I said 14. I was like, can you tell that we're going to 14 first, and then why? And the answer was we had to come down here and get into this, right? We had to come, this is a distribution. Distribution has a chance to catch from the point it starts. So that was our point of being able to catch. That's what we did. We caught. So it started out as a distribution pattern, and so right here it was going to drop lower. This was the actual point. This was the end all be all point. This part right here. This is our spring. This is our actual bottom. It happened in after hours. Pull that up. See how it went back down and touched, and it sprang back up. It touched. It did this distribution pattern. This distribution was over, and it had a chance to go down further. So this would have been an LPSY on the very Booksy has talked a lot about these things. Oops. These things here, as you go down, get smaller, right? This would have been the last one to drop, right? It didn't happen. It caught itself and sprung up. This was a UTAD, and I honestly thought I was going to break down lower. I did not see it going after hours and springing back up. So where we are now is we have, just like in the previous thing I was showing, we have these areas that have to be covered on the way up. And once we get to back to the 30s, that finishes our bowl. The bowl we're making, it finishes it, right? So once we get back to the 30s, it jumps. It doesn't need anything here. It's jumping from here 660. Okay, so it has to finish this bowl first, and it's going to be slower. It's going to be slower. Uh, I've tried to think of different ways to kind of like iterate this up, to the 30s. But it's going to be slower. I mean, slower. I mean, it's not super. I mean, just do a one for one thing. Okay, this doesn't quite get us to the 30s, but just to get down here, now we'll flip it. I'll flip it, even though this isn't a very accurate way to do it, right? It's not a good way to really explain how it's going to go up, but it gives that bowl shape. So by the 1st of April ish, we should be back in the 30s. Right? So it's going to happen pretty fast comparably. Now, could this be wider? Actually, be more like this, more like it doesn't look right. I mean, could it be over some? By the end of April, like, I can't see us not being past the 30s. So, but in between here, and there's a difference, and I don't have a volume thing, right, that shows the difference between accumulation and profile. I have to do it all old school, unfortunately. And if you look in here, like this new pattern was almost exactly like what we just looked at, like where this was the point it could catch, right? This was the start of it. This was the point it could catch. It actually, I think, went down farther in post market, but when it started the day it caught, and it's basically, it's created a new zone, and see how this kind of like is a walking thing, like I was showing before with accumulation. It could still, I expect it to drop, but no longer lower than uh, this area. But it'll spend most of the time up there. Now it could still just come up here and start, take off. But I think this is going to be a little longer accumulation because it jumps up into the 21s. Now it's going to do the same thing up there. So however long this takes the rest of this week. If every week we have one of these, uh, and we jump up, $3 in between, to start the range. It's not going to take us long to get to 30, right? I can't, I can't time it perfectly, but I think we're almost there. We're on our way up. We're no longer down is no longer, it's just no longer an option. And when it's not, the reason it has to iterate up to the 30s, like look at this big gap here. There's no work done there at all. We have to do that before we go up. And there's a big gap. Big gap here. And how they choose to do that gap is pretty much up to them. But once you see 30, we're weeks away from 60 or a week. It's not going to take long in between 30 and 60. I mean, yeah, we're like right there. We're on the cusp. So, just wanted to make that clear that if you see here, like, this gap is actually going in the holes here. Right? Let's just take this. And when I say holes, I mean there's very little trading here, right? So like this part here, we know was just a pass to come up here, and we know this was just a little bit of trading to go down to here, right? So, and I marked this liquidity zone that we never did down here, but I think that when they went look and they ended up finding out it cost more than it was, they weren't finding any weak hands at that point. The weak hands are gone. So I just wanted to show you like where we were. We're on our upward momentum now. We're no longer in distribution. We're now in accumulation. And accumulation is a little bit more rapid, right? Let's go back to the example again that was pulling up. I just want to see how long that huge face took. So from here being the top, this is a big accumulation from March 17th to May 13th, 14th. And we didn't even take off till June, so it might be a little bit longer March. But this is a much bigger accumulation thing, and we're not going to iterate the same, right? Like basically we're on this part, but in a very larger way. So our range is to get to 60, right? So see how it has this big jump here and it goes up here? This is what our 60 will be like. It'll come up into the 60s and then it'll drop down, make people think it's going to drop back down, maybe scare out some weak hands or some people that got in at 30s and they're like, okay, I'm done. Then it's going to come down and then it should push up. Now, if it doesn't do that, it's just going to keep accumulating and building a larger and larger accumulation until the shorts break. That's how Tesla pretty much did it. There wouldn't be another run per se. I mean, there will be a run up to 60 because we don't have to go through the 40s, right? So keep that in mind. If it starts to come back down after 60s and comes back down into our range, right? Like if we use this as an example, see how this top is? This top here, this mound, that's the equivalent of this mound here, right? So that would be our bottom. So if it comes up into the 60s and it comes down before a big run, we're going to know it's going to be above this, but it's going to be, it's going to be pretty, it'll be pretty close to it, if that makes sense. It's not going to come down below that, right? It's not going to break down to there. 50s are a new low at that point. So Yeah, that's where we are. That's how we got here. We had to come down to make. There was nothing holding us up except this stick, and we had to come down so that we could build a stronger base for the next run up. So many people think, it's like, oh, they're just trying to lower it. No, they're strengthening it up by getting rid of all the weak hands. They're all gone. Everybody that, you know, didn't know what they were doing, didn't want to hold on to it, they're out, right? So now they know that they only got strong hands. And they might try some scare tactics a little bit here and there. Uh, like they did with the earnings call. They made it look like it was going to drop down, and then it was actually they actually built this distribution pattern. So I fully expected it to keep going right here, and I think it did. And after hours, did it go farther? No, didn't go as far. But it actually had finished it out here because of what it did in after hours. I was expecting a UTAD to go up, and it did, but it did it all in after hours. Um, this was a catch, a spring, and uh, conversion over into accumulation. So, um, yeah, so I'm watching it now. This being the buying climax. Um, as long as it doesn't go above the buying climax and then come back down below the strength test, which I don't see that happening, it's accumulation. And the longer this is, if we take off today, it's not going to be as strong. So the longer we stay in this range, the stronger the push up. And I think if it does, it'll push up above 22, catch, come back down, do the same thing in here, something similar to uh, what we've been doing in this area. And I don't know, this area could be done. Um, Unfortunately, I don't have the volume profile, so I can't double check uh, from a volume perspective. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood, like, we are on the way up. Like if you've been holding and you're still in, you're doing good. This is you know, I mean, 17, whatever it might be. We have another drop down Friday, might be the lowest you'll be able to get in from here on out. Might be. I don't know. I can't predict the future, but that's the way I see it. I mean, it makes the most sense to me. It's completely practical. It's what I predicted. Unfortunately, I don't have those videos as proof anymore. Um, but if anybody did watch them, they knew that I was predicting this. I remember even telling one person that they were like, well, I don't think it's going to 14. And I said, well, when it does, maybe I'll come back and watch my videos. So anyway, that sounded really snarky, but I don't care. Whatever. I'm just trying to help people learn how to trade now that, yeah, this isn't going to take much of a bull shape. If you look at it down here, right, after it catches the part where it hits 30, then it has the shoot up. It's like straight up. So that's what I expect. And with that, Tulu, have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. I'll probably be the last thing I record this week. Got a bunch of stuff on my plate, but I wanted everybody to know what I thought. And have a good one.